Shadow stood motionless in the darkness of the Council's central archive, his specialized vision allowing him to see the faint patterns of security lasers crisscrossing the room. For an assassin who had ended over 3,000 lives across 5 centuries, breaking into a secure facility should have been routine. But this time was different. This time, he wasn't here to take a life. He was here to save them. The soft hum of the archive's quantum processors filled the silence as Shadow navigated between the security beams with practiced ease. His dark, scaled skin absorbed any stray light, making him practically invisible even to the most advanced detection systems. The Council had grown overconfident in their security measures, never expecting that their most reliable killer would turn against them. 3 days ago, during what should have been a standard elimination contract, Shadow had discovered something that shook his unwavering loyalty. His target, a minor data analyst, had sent out an encrypted message just before Shadow ended his life. Curiosity, a trait that had kept Shadow alive for centuries, led him to decrypt that final message. Now he needed proof. Shadow reached the central terminal and extended a thin metallic probe from his wrist device. The archives would have the evidence he needed. As the probe connected with the system, streams of data flooded his neural interface. His enhanced mind processed the information at incredible speeds, searching for specific patterns. There it was. Project Genesis. Shadow's normally steady hands trembled as he read the files. The Galactic Council, the supposed guardians of peace and order in the galaxy, had been systematically destroying entire civilizations, not through war or direct conflict, but through carefully orchestrated natural disasters and engineered plagues. Their goal, harvesting genetic material from species at their peak, just before their extinction. His own people, the Nightweavers, hadn't died out from the mysterious plague that swept their world 3 centuries ago. They had been deliberately targeted, their genetic ability to bend light and shadow deemed too valuable to leave in the hands of a free species. Shadow's infrared sensors detected movement in the corridor outside. The night shift guards were making their rounds earlier than expected. He quickly copied the essential files and prepared to leave, but something made him dig deeper. One more search. The results made his blood run cold. Target species #2991. Humans. Status. Preliminary assessment complete. Recommendation. Immediate harvest. Notes. Exceptional adaptability and problem-solving capabilities. Genetic structure shows remarkable potential for enhancement. Shadow had heard of humans, the galaxy's newest spacefaring race, barely 2 centuries into their expansion beyond their home system. Most elder species dismissed them as primitive and unremarkable. But Shadow knew better. He had observed them from afar during several contracts in human space. They were different, unpredictable, innovative. The guards were getting closer. Shadow disconnected from the terminal and melted into the shadows, his mind racing. The Council would expect him to report to his handler tomorrow for his next assignment. They would know something was wrong when he didn't show up. His centuries-old reputation for perfect reliability would work against him. They would know something had changed. He needed allies, but his usual contacts were too deeply connected to the Council. The elder species were set in their ways, too cautious to act without centuries of deliberation. The younger races were too afraid of Council power to help. As Shadow slipped through the ventilation system and emerged on the building's roof under the light of 3 moons, a plan began to form. The Council thought humans were primitive because they didn't follow the expected patterns of civilization development. They saw humanity's unpredictability as a weakness to exploit. But Shadow had seen differently. He had watched humans turn apparent disadvantages into victories, had seen them solve problems in ways that made no sense to elder species but worked brilliantly. They were adaptable, resourceful, and most importantly, they had nothing to lose. Shadow looked up at the star-filled sky and made his decision. If anyone could help him expose the Council's crimes and prevent humanity's harvest, it would be the humans themselves. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's deadliest assassin felt something new. Hope. He had to get to Earth. The small mountain cabin looked ordinary to most eyes, but Shadow knew better. Hidden security systems covered every approach, and the seemingly rustic structure had enough defensive capabilities to hold off a small army. It had taken Shadow 3 days to find this place, and another 2 to confirm its owner was who he needed. Jack Miller lived alone in these mountains. To his neighbors, he was just another retired military man seeking peace and quiet. But Shadow's research had revealed much more. 30 years of military intelligence work, with a special focus on potential extraterrestrial threats. Most importantly, Jack had filed a classified report 5 years ago about suspicious activities that matched the Council's harvesting patterns. Shadow waited until midnight before making his move. As he approached the cabin's front door, motion sensors triggered floodlights. A gruff voice came through a hidden speaker. Most folks who come up here uninvited don't leave in one piece. Shadow remained still. I read your report about the Centauri colony disappearance, Commander Miller. You were right. It wasn't an accident. A long pause followed. The cabin's door opened slowly, revealing a man in his 60s with gray hair and alert eyes. Jack held a weapon Shadow recognized as more advanced than typical Earth technology. Come inside, Jack said, his weapon never wavering. But try anything, and you'll learn why I was called the best shot in 3 systems. Inside, the cabin's rustic appearance gave way to a sophisticated command center. Screens covered one wall, showing various security feeds and data streams. Jack gestured to a chair while keeping a safe distance. Talk. Shadow activated a small holographic projector, displaying the files he'd stolen. The Galactic Council has been eliminating species at their peak of development, harvesting their genetic material for weapons research. Your Centauri colony stumbled onto one of their testing sites. Jack's eyes narrowed as he studied the projected data. Why should I believe you? Because I was their tool, Shadow replied. For centuries, I eliminated threats to their plans. But now, he paused, choosing his words carefully. They plan to harvest humanity next. I've seen enough death. Jack lowered his weapon slightly. Why come to me? Why humans? Your species solves problems differently. When the Council blocked your expansion into the Orion sector, you didn't fight. You found a way around through unexplored space. When your colonies faced resource shortages, you created new technologies instead of starting wars. You adapt. You innovate. And that's why they want to harvest us, Jack said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Yes, your genetic adaptability is unique, but it's also why you might be able to stop them. Jack finally lowered his weapon completely and walked to a cabinet, pulling out 2 glasses and a bottle of amber liquid. Whiskey, he explained, pouring 2 measures. If we're going to plan how to save humanity, we might as well drink to it. Shadow accepted the glass, studying the liquid. It was his first time being offered a drink by another species. I cannot consume this safely, but I appreciate the gesture. Jack smiled for the first time. First rule of humanity. It's the thought that counts. He sat down, his expression turning serious. What's your real name? I can't keep calling you the alien in my head. Shadow is the only name I've used for centuries. My people's names died with them. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Well, Shadow, exposing a galactic conspiracy isn't a 2-person job. I know some people, good people who can help, but they'll need proof and lots of it. The Council will notice I've gone missing soon. They'll start looking. Good, Jack said, a glint in his eye. Let them come. Second rule of humanity. The best plans are the ones where your enemies do exactly what you expect them to do. Shadow felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Surprise. Humans really did think differently. While most species would be planning how to hide, this human was already thinking about how to use their pursuers to their advantage. When do we start? Shadow asked. Jack finished his whiskey and smiled. We already have. Third rule of humanity. We're always moving forward, even when it looks like we're standing still. 3 days after Shadow's arrival, Jack's mountain cabin had become a hub of unusual activity. Shadow watched from a corner as 3 humans argued over the best way to hack alien computer systems. He had expected Jack to gather soldiers or spies. Instead, he had assembled what he called a team of misfits. Marcus stood at the main computer display, his fingers dancing over multiple keyboards. Once the Navy's top cyber warfare expert, he had been forced to retire after expressing too much interest in classified alien technology. His wild gray hair and coffee-stained t-shirt made him look harmless, but Shadow had seen the way his mind worked, like a weapon wrapped in jokes and nervous energy. The Council's systems use quantum encryption, Shadow explained for the 3rd time. It's impossible to break through. Marcus grinned without looking away from his screens. Impossible just means nobody's been crazy enough to try it yet. Everything has a weak point. We just have to think differently. Across the room, Doc was studying the genetic data Shadow had stolen. Her real name was hidden behind a trail of redacted files, but her understanding of alien biology had once made her the top xenobiologist in the Earth Defense Force. That was before she had been dismissed for conducting unauthorized experiments. These harvesting patterns, Doc muttered, pushing her thick glasses up her nose. They're not just collecting genetic material. They're looking for specific combinations, like they're building something. The 3rd member of their team, Ray, moved so quietly that even Shadow had trouble tracking him. A master of disguise and infiltration, he had once helped Earth's intelligence agencies plant monitoring devices in 7 alien embassies without being detected. Now he was studying holographic images of Council security systems, his dark eyes missing nothing. Their security is good, Ray said softly, but it's predictable. They expect attacks to follow logical patterns. We won't do that. Jack walked in carrying fresh coffee for his team. Shadow, you said we have about 2 days before the Council realizes you've gone rogue. Show us again where their nearest data center is. Shadow activated his holographic projector, displaying a massive space station, the archival hub in the Proxima system. But breaking in would be suicide. The security is perfect. Marcus interrupted, spinning in his chair. Too perfect. Systems that perfect develop blind spots because they stop looking for imperfect solutions. Doc looked up from her data. The genetic samples they're storing there. If we could access them, I might be able to prove they're building biological weapons. The Council would never expect a direct attack. Ray added, they'd expect subterfuge, careful planning. Which is exactly why we're going to walk in through the front door. Jack finished. Shadow looked at each of them. You're all insane. Thank you. Marcus beamed. That's the nicest thing anyone's said all day. Jack gathered them around the main table. Here's the plan. Marcus, you'll create the biggest, messiest cyber attack their outer systems have ever seen. Pure chaos, no pattern. Marcus cracked his knuckles. I've got some viruses I've been wanting to try out. Ray, while they're distracted by Marcus's attack, you'll get Doc and Shadow inside using those maintenance worker disguises you've been studying. Already have the uniforms ready, Ray said quietly, and their work patterns memorized. Doc, once inside, an alarm blared from Marcus's computer. His usual grin vanished. We've got trouble. Big trouble. I'm picking up Council ships entering the solar system. A lot of them. Shadow moved to the display. Impossible. They couldn't have tracked me here so quickly unless... His voice trailed off as realization hit. Unless they were already coming, Jack finished grimly. They're starting the harvest early. The room fell silent as implications sank in. Humanity wasn't a future target anymore. They were about to become the next victim of the Council's genetic harvesting program. Marcus turned to his computers, fingers flying over keys. I'm alerting Earth defense networks, but they'll never get ready in time. Then we change the plan, Jack said firmly. We've got the galaxy's deadliest assassin, Earth's best hacker, a genius biologist, and a master of disguise. The council thinks they're hunting us. Let's show them what happens when humans get backed into a corner. Shadow watched the humans spring into action, amazed at how quickly they adapted to the new threat. No panic, no lengthy debates, just immediate action. For the first time, he truly believed they might have a chance. The maintenance corridor of the council's archival hub stretched before them like a sterile white snake. Shadow moved silently alongside Doc and Ray, all three dressed in the gray uniforms of station workers. Above them, they could hear the chaos Marcus was creating in the station's outer systems. Status update. Jack's voice crackled through their hidden earpieces from his position on their cloaked shuttle, hidden among the station's service vehicles. Marcus's virus is working perfectly, Ray whispered. Station security is completely focused on the outer rings. They have no idea we're inside. Doc checked her tablet, disguised as standard maintenance equipment. We're approaching the main genetics lab. Shadow, you're sure about the access codes? They change them daily, Shadow replied. But maintenance codes stay the same. The council never expects anyone to try breaking in through service entrances. Too undignified. Ray smiled slightly. Their mistake. Sometimes the back door is the best door. They reached a security checkpoint. Two guards stood watch, looking bored and distracted by the alerts flashing on their monitors about the outer system breach. Shadow felt his muscles tense, ready for violence, but Ray stepped forward with practiced ease. Maintenance Crew Delta, Ray said in a perfect imitation of the local accent. We've got orders to check the environmental systems. All this cyber activity is putting stress on the cooling units. The guards barely glanced at their IDs before waving them through. Shadow was amazed at how simple human deception could work so well. His people would have tried to use technology or stealth, but sometimes he was learning. The simple approach was best. Inside the genetics lab, Doc immediately went to work. Her fingers flew over the control panels while Shadow and Ray stood guard. "This is incredible," she muttered. "They're not just collecting genetic samples. They're combining them, creating hybrid soldiers using the best traits from each harvested species. How long do you need?" Shadow asked, keeping his voice low. 5 minutes to download the data, 10 to plant the virus that will corrupt their samples. Marcus's voice cut through their earpieces. "Better make it 2 minutes. They're starting to trace my attack. And, oh shit. What is it?" Jack demanded. "They're not just trying to stop my virus. They're using it to track its origin. They're going to find Earth." Shadow saw the fear flash across Doc's face, but her hands never stopped moving. Ray had already shifted position, watching both exits with calm professionalism. "Download complete," Doc announced, starting the corruption sequence. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. A mechanical voice echoed through the corridors. "Security breach in genetics lab. All personnel evacuate. Security teams to level 5. "They found us," Ray said calmly. "Time for Plan B." Shadow turned to him. "We had a Plan B." "We're humans," Ray replied with a slight smile. "We always have a Plan B, usually make it up as we go along." He pulled out what looked like small silver marbles from his pocket. "Marcus, kill the gravity in Sector 5 in 3, 2, 1. The world suddenly went weightless. Ray threw the marbles, which burst into clouds of dense smoke. Security forces arriving at both ends of the corridor found themselves floating in zero gravity, blinded by smoke and completely confused. "This way," Doc called out, using small gas bursts from her maintenance tool to propel herself toward a ventilation shaft. "The smoke will get sucked into the air system. Follow the flow." Shadow watched in amazement as the humans navigated the zero-gravity environment with practiced ease. They had trained for this, he realized. While he had been worrying about complex security systems, they had been preparing for physical challenges. They reached Jack's shuttle just as station security was organizing a proper response. As they sped away from the station, blending in with the panic of evacuating vessels, Shadow watched Doc secure her stolen data. "Did you get everything we need?" he asked. Doc's eyes were bright with excitement. Better. We got proof of their whole operation. And, she paused, grinning, I left them a little surprise. Their precious genetic samples are being scrambled as we speak. Decades of careful collection, completely unusable. They'll be angry, Shadow warned. Good, Jack said from the pilot's seat. Angry enemies make mistakes, and we're counting on them making a big one when they come for Earth. Looking at the determined faces around him, Shadow began to understand why the Council feared humans so much. They didn't just break rules. They rewrote them completely. The journey back to Earth was interrupted by an unexpected transmission. Shadow watched as the holographic image of High Administrator Ward materialized in their shuttle's command center. His crystalline form glittered with barely contained anger. Shadow, the administrator's voice was cold. You disappoint me. Centuries of loyal service, thrown away for what? These primitives. Jack and the others watched silently from outside the hologram's view range. They had planned for this possibility, but Shadow still felt the weight of centuries of conditioning as he faced his former master. I know about the harvesting program, Shadow said simply, about what you did to my people. Ward's crystalline features shifted into what passed for a smile among his kind. Ah, yes. The Nightweavers, such useful genetic material. And now you work with humans, perhaps the most valuable specimens we've found yet. The administrator's form shifted, producing a data crystal. Let's speak plainly. Return to us, bring us the humans' defense plans, and I'll give you what you've always wanted, the pure genetic material of your species. Enough to recreate them. Shadow felt his hands tremble. For centuries, he had dreamed of finding some way to bring back his people. Now the opportunity was right in front of him. An interesting offer, Shadow replied, buying time as thoughts raced through his mind. More than interesting, Ward pressed. This is everything you've ever wanted. These humans, they're nothing to you, just another short-lived species that will burn bright and fade quickly. Your people could live again. From the corner of his eye, Shadow saw Doc quietly working at her console, tracing the transmission. Ray had disappeared entirely, typical of the human's stealthy nature. Marcus was furiously typing, presumably trying to hack the communication channel. Why offer this now? Shadow asked. Because humans are dangerous, Ward hissed. You've seen it yourself. They don't follow patterns. They don't behave as species should. Every simulation we run shows them becoming a threat to galactic order within centuries. Better to harvest their useful traits now, while we can control the process. Jack stepped forward, deliberately entering the hologram's view. We're already a threat to your order, aren't we? That's why you're really here. Ward's crystal form flickered with surprise. Commander Miller, how bold of you to reveal yourself. Bold is what we do, Jack replied calmly. Shadow, the transmission trace is complete. They're less than an hour behind us. Shadow looked at the humans, these strange, unpredictable beings who had welcomed him despite knowing what he was, who had trusted him with their lives and their planet's future, who had shown him that adaptation and change were strengths, not flaws to be corrected. Administrator, Shadow said, straightening to his full height, I have your answer. Choose carefully, Shadow. Centuries of loyalty should mean something. It does. Shadow's voice was firm. It means I recognize loyalty when I see it, and I see it here, among these primitives who fight for each other, who adapt and grow instead of harvesting and controlling. My people are gone, but humanity lives, and they've shown me something your council never did, trust. Ward's form crackled with rage. Then die with them. Our fleet will reach Earth soon. Your human friends won't survive what's coming. The hologram vanished. Almost immediately, Marcus called out from his station. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're closing fast. Did you get what we needed? Jack asked Doc. She nodded, holding up a data crystal. The transmission trace gave us their fleet movements, encryption codes, everything. They were so angry they got sloppy. Just as we planned. Ray's voice came from somewhere in the shadows. Humans aren't the only ones who can be predictable. Shadow looked at each of them. They'll reach Earth before us. Good, Jack said with a grim smile. Because Earth is ready. While they were focusing on us, every defense system on the planet was being prepared. Sometimes the best way to spring a trap is to let the enemy think they're springing one of their own. For the first time in his long life, Shadow felt something new, not just hope, but certainty. The Council thought humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable. They were wrong. Humans were dangerous because they understood something the Council never would. True strength comes from trusting others, not controlling them. The Earth Defense Command Center hummed with activity as screens displayed the approaching Council fleet. Shadow stood beside Jack and his team, watching as Marcus worked on the final phase of their plan. Broadcasting in 3 minutes, Marcus announced, his usual jokes replaced by intense focus. Every communication channel, every screen, every device connected to the galactic network will receive our transmission. Doc looked up from her analysis station. The genetic evidence is ready. I've broken it down so even non-scientific species will understand what the Council has been doing. They'll try to stop the broadcast, Shadow warned. Let them try, Marcus grinned, his fingers flying over his keyboard. I've got a few surprises ready. Remember that virus they tried to trace? It wasn't just a distraction. It was planting backdoors everywhere it touched. Ray emerged from the shadows with a datapad. Our agents across the galaxy are in position. The moment the broadcast starts, they'll ensure key species see it. The main screen showed the Council fleet, now just minutes from Earth orbit. Smaller ships were already entering the atmosphere, advanced teams looking for easy targets. They're broadcasting their own message, a military officer reported. They're claiming to be here on a peaceful diplomatic mission. Jack laughed. Perfect. Marcus, add their current transmission to our broadcast. Let everyone see their lies alongside the truth. Shadow watched in amazement as the humans coordinated their efforts. Where other species would have panicked at the sight of the Council fleet, these humans were fighting back with information. A weapon more powerful than any warship. Broadcast starting in 30 seconds, Marcus called out. Doc, ready with the genetic evidence? Ready, she confirmed. Starting with the Nightweaver extinction, then showing how they modified and weaponized the stolen genes. The evidence from the archival hub proves everything. 10 seconds, Marcus announced. Shadow, you're on first. The galaxy needs to hear this from someone they know. Shadow stepped forward as Marcus's countdown reached 0. His image was now being transmitted across the galaxy to every species capable of receiving the signal. I am Shadow, he began, his voice firm. For centuries, I served the Galactic Council as their most trusted assassin. Today, I stand with humanity to reveal the truth about the Council's greatest crime. The broadcast continued, showing the evidence they had stolen. Doc's analysis revealed how the Council had systematically destroyed civilizations at their peak, harvesting genetic material to create biological weapons. Ray's infiltration footage showed the secret facilities where these weapons were developed. They're trying to shut us down, Marcus called out, his hands moving faster than ever. But our virus is fighting back. Every attempt they make to stop us just opens new channels for the broadcast. On screens across the command center, they could see the impact. Ships from various species were appearing at the edge of the solar system, not to help the Council, but to confront them. Message from the Centauri colonies, an officer reported. They're confirming the evidence about their missing settlement. More systems are reporting similar confirmations. Jack placed a hand on Shadow's shoulder. The Council's big weakness. They never thought anyone would dare expose them. They thought fear would keep everyone in line. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, Marcus announced. They're ordering all ships to begin the harvest immediately. No more pretense of diplomacy. And that's their final mistake, Jack said grimly. Marcus, send the second package. Marcus hit a series of keys, and new data began streaming across the galaxy. These are their attack plans, their fleet positions, their weapon specifications, everything we got from tracing their transmission during their attempt to buy Shadow's loyalty. Shadow watched as the Council's carefully maintained web of lies and fear began to unravel. Species that had been afraid to stand alone were now reaching out to each other, sharing information, coordinating responses. Multiple Council ships are standing down, Ray reported from his station. Their crews are refusing orders to attack. The Council never understood, Shadow said quietly. They saw humanity's ability to share information, to trust, to work together as a weakness. They never realized it was the greatest strength of all. Jack nodded. And now the galaxy is learning what we already knew. Sometimes the best way to fight darkness is simply to shine a light on it. But even as they watched their plan succeed, warning alarms began to blare. The Council ships, still loyal to their masters, were moving into attack position. The truth was out, that the battle for Earth was about to begin. The sky above Earth burned with weapons fire as the loyal Council ships began their attack. In the command center, Shadow watched the humans spring into action with practiced precision that would have impressed even his own warrior species. They're using exactly the attack pattern from their standard protocols, Ray observed, studying the tactical display. Jack smiled grimly. Of course they are, because that's what worked for them for thousands of years. Marcus, are our surprises ready? All set, Marcus replied, his fingers dancing across his console. Their own biological weapons, reprogrammed thanks to Doc's work, ready to transmit the activation signal to their ships. Shadow had never seen anything like it. While the Council ships moved in their perfect, predictable formations, Earth's defenders scattered in seemingly random patterns. Small fighter craft weaved between capital ships in maneuvers that looked like chaos, but followed a deeper strategy. First wave approaching upper atmosphere, an officer reported. They're launching harvest pods. Now, Jack commanded. Marcus pressed a button, and suddenly half the Council's ships stopped in their tracks. Through the command center's windows, they could see the massive vessels hanging motionless in the sky. What did you do? Shadow asked, amazed. Doc grinned. Remember those genetic samples they've been collecting? The ones they turned into weapons. We didn't just corrupt them. We reprogrammed them. Their own bioweapons are now targeting their ship's control systems. Message from the Council flagship, Ray announced. The High Administrator is demanding our surrender. Put him through, Jack ordered. Administrator Ward's crystalline form appeared, his usual calm shattered by rage. What have you done? We learned from you, Jack replied simply. You spent centuries collecting weapons to use against other species. We just showed you what happens when those weapons find their way home. Impossible, Ward sputtered. Our systems are perfect. Our plans were flawless. That's your problem, Marcus chimed in. Perfect is predictable. Predictable is vulnerable. On the tactical display, more Council ships were going dark as their systems fell to the reprogrammed weapons. The remaining vessels tried to adjust their strategy, but centuries of rigid training worked against them. Earth fighters are engaging the remaining ships, Ray reported. They can't predict our attack patterns because there aren't any patterns. Each squadron is improvising based on the situation. Shadow watched in awe as human pilots pulled off maneuvers that defied conventional space combat doctrine. They used debris from disabled ships as cover, executed slingshot maneuvers around Earth's moon, and coordinated attacks that looked like mistakes until the last second. Administrator, Jack said to the hologram, you have two choices: surrender and face justice from all the species you've wronged, or watch your fleet be dismantled piece by piece. Ward's response was to cut communication and order his remaining ships to launch everything they had at Earth. It was exactly what they had expected him to do. All units, Jack commanded. Operation Checkmate is go. The Earth's defense platforms, hidden until now, revealed themselves, not with energy weapons or missiles, but with massive electromagnetic pulses calibrated to the exact frequency of Council ship systems. frequencies they had discovered in the stolen data. In space, the remaining Council ships began to drift powerless. The harvest of humanity had become humanity's harvest of the Council's fleet. Council flagship is attempting to flee, Ray reported. Not today, Shadow said quietly, pressing a button on his wrist computer. On the tactical display, the flagship's engines exploded. I had centuries to learn their ship's weaknesses. They never thought to change the access codes they gave their most trusted assassin. The battle was over in less than an hour. As Shadow looked around the command center at his human friends, he finally understood why the Council had feared them so much. Humans hadn't just defeated the Council. They had done it by turning the Council's own weapons and tactics against them. What happens now? Shadow asked as they watched Earth's ships begin rescue operations for the disabled Council vessels. Jack looked at his team, the hacker, the biologist, the spy, and the alien assassin who had chosen to trust humanity. Now we help build something better. The galaxy needed a shakeup, and who better to help reorganize things than the species that specializes in chaos and adaptation? Shadow nodded. The Council had wanted to harvest humanity's potential. Instead, humanity would now help the galaxy reach its own potential. And for the first time in centuries, Shadow looked forward to an uncertain future. After all, he had learned from the humans that the best plans are the ones that leave room for improvisation.